Hey, Tom, very good to see you. Today, we are talking about 5 rules for investing after retirement. As you know, retirees have so much to juggle. They need to have those safe investments to protect their income streams, but not so safe that they risk running out of money in retirement. And of course, I think everybody's talking about inflation today, right, Tom? You and I have talked about it before. The consumer price index jumped 7% year over year. We haven't seen numbers like that since the 80s. So, your number one piece of advice: watch out for inflation.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me back, Erin. It's great to see you again. Uh, Inflation is the silent tax. It's a killer that most
Yeah.
people, unfortunately, don't take into consideration in their retirement planning process. And over the course of, I would say, the last 10 or so years, we've been pretty lucky because the inflation factor, as the government calculates it, has been fairly low. The difference, there is a big difference though between the current CPI rate and how they calculated it back in the 80s. Currently, the CPI rate doesn't include things like food, gas, healthcare, some of the autos. So some of the higher inflation assets or pricing that most people are used to on a day-to-day basis. Right now, used cars are up over 40%. Gasoline is up 50%. If you're in the grocery store, you know that your chicken and your beef and your vegetables and your bread and your milk are much higher.
Right.
Some of the calculations, economists like Peter Schiff and George Gammons, they tell us that if we use the old CPI formula, we would actually be seeing inflation in double digits today.
It kind of feels like that.
For sure. And if you,
Right.
like I said, if you're in a grocery store, you know it's not cheap.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. The other point that you want to move on to is point number 2, which is break your retirement into buckets. What does that mean and why is it important?
so I think what most people should be doing is breaking their assets or their asset usage over different time segments. And that's part of, I think, proper asset allocation and income allocation strategies. You need to segment your certain dollars for, say, a 1 to 3 year period. Another one's from, say, 3 to 5 or 3 to 7, 5 to 10, 7 to 10, and then maybe longer. So you want to have different buckets of monies for different purposes and for different time frames because things happen in different time frames. And so you just want to be able to have access to these different buckets of money without hurting other ones or depleting other ones. But if we use the analogy of a bucket brigade, if you segment money over these time frames, once you use up, say, that first bucket of 1 to 3 years, well, then you've given your other 3 or 4 buckets time to grow.
Right.
And then you can replenish that first bucket with some of the overflow, if you will, from those other buckets that you haven't used yet or haven't tapped into.
Okay.
So it's just, I think, a very prudent way to make sure that you have assets aligned for the what if scenarios.
Okay. Yeah. And always very important. All right. Moving on to point number 3, which is forget the 60/40 rule. And this goes hand in hand with point number 1. Watch out for inflation, right? Because
Sure.
bonds are paying yields which are below inflation right now.
Oh, absolutely. At least back in the 80s, when inflation was in double digits or high singles, at least treasury bonds and CDs were paying double digits. So
Yeah.
you were
Can you
at least
imagine?
keeping up with inflation, or maybe even beating it a little bit.
Yeah.
But today, with this 7, 8, 9% inflation rate and a less than 1% treasury bond, you're actually losing money these days in fixed income investments.
Hmm.
So the 60/40 rule came about back in the 70s and 80s, again, when bond rates were at their peak, when we were actually in a fixed income bull market. For the last 10 or so years, we've been in a fixed income bear market, meaning that those interest rates that you're getting on those types of items, whether they're treasury bonds or municipal bonds or corporate bonds, have been steadily going down. And
Hmm.
as we just mentioned, they're not keeping up with inflation, and people are actually losing money in real time in real dollars by utilizing them.
Right. So then we have to talk about what is a good bond replacement strategy, which brings us to number four, consider annuities. And I feel like there's a
Sure.
love-hate relationship with annuities.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation, I would say, out in the marketplace about annuities. Uh, an example that everyone knows about that is actually an annuity, so to speak, in its structure is Social Security.
Mm.
Um, so it's funny when I hear people say, "I hate annuities. I'll never use an annuity," and I explain how Social Security works, and I ask them when are they going to return their Social Security check to the government. They,
Never.
that's the kind of response that I get, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of misunderstanding about what annuities are and how they work. But the greatest thing about in my mind currently about fixed annuities, indexed annuities, is that they have guaranteed income strategies or income riders to them that will help you create the guaranteed income that you need to make sure that your bills are paid every day. There's a certain aspect to these fixed annuities that no other investment has, which is mortality credits. And mortality credits are really kind of the juice for annuities that helps them get these much better than fixed income rates of return.
Mhm.
If anybody needs a greater explanation, Tom Hegna does a great job of talking about it on a lot of his YouTube videos, or you certainly can call me or email me and I'll certainly explain it to you. Another thing about that is there's a great movie that just recently came out that's online for people to view. It's called The Baby Boomer Dilemma. And in this movie, this is what it talks about. It talks about basically the failure of fixed income currently, how it's not working, how it's actually hurting people, and how annuities are an incredible income replacement strategy. Right now, I think the movie, for someone who wants to view it on online, it's I think $29 to watch it. I actually have a gift card for anyone who wants to watch this movie. You can watch it for free. All you have to do is call my office or send us an email with your contact information, and I will send you out this gift card. And I'll even send you a box of milk duds to go with it. And you can sit at home at your leisure. It's wintertime. If it's snowing, raining, it's too cold to go outside or do anything. Spend about 90 minutes watching this movie. I think honestly, I think it will change your life.
Pull up your visual aid there, Tom. And yeah, let's just
Sure.
underscore that a little bit. So this is great. I mean, this would be an educational video for anybody who would be affected by this. And as we know, the boomer generation is huge as everybody gets ready for retirement right now. So that's really valuable. Okay, let's move on to point number five, which is consider real assets for diversification. Why is this so important?
Well, a lot of the real assets are not correlated to the stock market.
Right.
So you have these assets that even though the stock market might be going up and down, other things might be able to either do the opposite or not be affected because of that. Things like gold and silver, gas and oil prices, maybe. We utilize a very unique strategy called structured notes, which is something that's a little bit advanced as far as the type of assets that people are using out there. They're not something that most people can get from a broker or a brokerage house. Real estate income might be another one, a REIT, or so these are the kinds of assets that are not correlated with a stock market that may be able to kick off an income or might be able to appreciate better or without any type of, again, relationship with the stock market.
Mhm.
You just have to be prudent and careful with these because some of them can move very quickly and up and down directions. Gold can move 2 or 3% in a day in either direction. Some people are using cryptocurrency. We've seen cryptocurrency move 5, 7, 10% in either direction in a single day. So you just have to be very careful with what you're doing, make sure if you're going to use these types of assets that they're in line with what your goals and objectives are and with your risk tolerance.
Right. Okay. Now, if somebody would like to talk to you more about everything that you brought up, not only to get that gift card, but also, to talk more about those structured notes, which are, specifically offered to your clients. What's the best way to reach you?
So the best way probably is call the office, 973-394-0623. That's probably the easiest way. I also have my email, tjoconnell, OCONNELL, at internationalfinancial.com, international financial, all one word. Those really are the easiest ways. I'm on LinkedIn, so people can find me there, direct message me there. And I'd be happy to send you out this gift card, answer questions that you may have about any of the things that we talked about today, or any other thoughts, concerns, or problems that you might have with your retirement planning.
Yeah, lots of concerns. That's you do. You always talk it through with me too, and I appreciate it. Tom, thank you very
My
much.
thanks, Erin. Great seeing you.
You too.